The grand chamber of the Galactic Council was a testament to 100 millennia of ordered dominion. Its ceiling was not a structure of metal or stone, but a captured nebula, swirling with the slow, majestic birth and death of stars, its light bathing the assembled delegates in hues of violet and gold. The air itself hummed with the resonant frequencies of a dozen different forms of consciousness, a symphony of thought and tradition that had, until now, known no true dissonance. At the center of this cosmic theater, suspended above a floor of polished obsidian that reflected the star nursery above, hovered the High Arbiter Kalen of the Cathar Dominion. His form, a towering crystalline lattice of intricate, light-conducting pathways, pulsed with a calm, ancient rhythm. Yet within that ancient calm, a new and unsettling tremor had begun. It was a discordance that threatened the very foundations of the galactic harmony he had sworn to uphold. Before him, a holographic sphere shimmered, displaying the source of this profound anxiety. It was a single vessel, stark and unadorned, drifting silently at the edge of the Perseus Arm, a sector the Council had long ago designated for fallow observation. The ship was a sliver of absolute black against the stellar tapestry, a void in the shape of a weapon. It bore no insignia, broadcasted no transponder code recognized by the exhaustive archives of the Council, and it did not respond to hails. It simply existed, a quiet, immovable object of immense potential energy. It was human. The name of its species, gleaned from fragmented, primitive radio signals that had leaked into the void centuries ago, was a whisper on the lips of intelligence analysts, a footnote in xenological studies. A species of ephemeral, soft-bodied bipeds from a high-gravity water world, noted for their chaotic societal structures and a brief, violent technological blossoming before they had, it was assumed, fallen silent like so many others. "It is an affront," came a voice, sharp and chitinous, resonating with the clicks and whirs of 1,000 articulated limbs. Lord Commander Xylos of the Vexian Ascendancy stood from his delegation's alcove, his multifaceted eyes fixed on the holographic ship. The Vexians were a people of action, their philosophy forged in the crucible of a predatory homeworld. They saw the universe as a hierarchy of strength, and this silent vessel was a direct challenge to their perception of the Council's place at its apex. For cycles, it has sat there, a ghost at our border, observing our trade lanes, our patrol vectors, our very heartlands. It violates the edicts of first contact. It scorns the sovereignty of this Council. It is a declaration of intent, written in the language of silence and shadow. Kalen's internal light pathways shimmered, a slow cascade of cool blue. He had expected this from Xylos. The Vexian saw a nail, and his entire being was a hammer. "The vessel has taken no hostile action, Lord Commander," Kalen projected, his voice a low, resonant chord that filled the chamber. "It has not crossed the demarcation line. It merely watches. Is observation a crime?" "Inaction can be the most potent form of aggression, High Arbiter," Xylos countered, his mandibles clicking with agitation. "It is a psychological tactic. It seeks to unnerve us, to force us to reveal our hand. These humans, they are an unknown variable in an equation that has remained balanced for eons. Variables must be solved, or they must be eliminated." A soft, ethereal chime echoed from another alcove, where the lumina floated in their nutrient-dense atmospheric spheres. They were beings of pure energy, their thoughts communicated through modulated light and harmonic resonance. "Or perhaps," the Lumina Collective whispered, their forms glowing with a gentle, inquisitive teal, "the variable seeks to understand the equation before it adds its own value. We have studied their leaked transmissions from their antiquity. They were filled with art, with questions about the cosmos, with a profound sense of loneliness. Is it not possible that they are simply cautious, that they are a people who have learned the peril of a rushed introduction?" Kalen appreciated the Lumina perspective. They were the philosophers and the mystics of the Council, always seeking the deeper meaning, the unseen motive. But their wisdom was often a luxury in a galaxy that, for all its ordered beauty, still contained dark and hungry corners. He shifted his focus to the geodes, the silicon-based sentients from the galactic core. Their massive, geode-like forms sat immobile, processing information with a patience that made the Cathar seem impulsive. "The data is incomplete," the chosen geode speaker stated, its voice a grating of tectonic plates, slow and deliberate. "The vessel's energy signature is paradoxical. It runs cold, colder than the void around it, yet our deep-range gravimetric sensors suggest a mass inconsistent with its size. It implies a density of technology that is illogical. It should have collapsed into a singularity. Its presence defies known physics. We cannot assess its capabilities," because we do not comprehend its principles of operation. That was the crux of it, the fear. It was not the fear of a barbarian horde at the gates brandishing primitive kinetic weapons. It was the fear of the incomprehensible. The Council's power was built on a shared understanding of science, of the fundamental laws that governed reality. Their ships bent space, their weapons harnessed the power of miniature stars, and their shields manipulated probability. But all of it was based on a common technological ancestry, a tree of knowledge whose roots stretched back to the first starfaring races. This human ship was not a branch on that tree. It was something grown in a different garden entirely, from a seed they had never seen. Xylos moved to the center of the chamber, his armored form casting a long, sharp shadow. Illogical, incomprehensible, unknown. These are not words of reassurance, High Arbiter. They are a warning. We have sent our finest diplomatic couriers. They were met with silence. We have sent hails on every known frequency in every mathematical language. We are met with silence. We are the Galactic Council. Our voice is the law that binds 1,000 worlds and 100 species. Our silence in the face of this intrusion will be perceived as weakness. It will invite challenge. It will erode the very foundation of peace you have so carefully maintained. He was not wrong. The stability of the Council was a delicate thing, a balance of power held in place by the perception of its unassailable authority. A single, unanswered challenge could create cracks in that facade, cracks into which old rivalries and ambitions could seep. Kalen felt the weight of 1,000 generations on his crystalline shoulders. He had presided over this chamber for centuries, his own form a living record of the Council's history. He had mediated disputes that could have shattered star systems, and he had forged alliances from the ashes of ancient wars. But this was different. This was not a negotiation or a conflict with a known entity. It was a confrontation with a mystery. "What do you propose, Lord Commander?" Kalen asked, though he already knew the answer. "A demonstration," Xylos declared, his voice ringing with conviction. "Not of aggression, but of authority. We will dispatch the Grand Flotilla, our best, our brightest, the ceremonial fleet that guards the throne worlds themselves. Its ships are not merely weapons. They are works of art, symbols of our technological and cultural zenith. We will position it opposite their vessel. We will issue one final, formal demand that they declare their intentions and submit to a council inspection. We will show them the power that holds this galaxy in a state of enlightened peace. They will understand. They will comply. And if they do not," Xylos paused, letting the implication hang in the supercharged air, "then we will have our answer, and we will respond in a manner that leaves no room for misinterpretation." The chamber fell into a profound silence, broken only by the gentle hum of the life support systems and the distant, silent fire of the nebula above. Kalen felt the collective will of the Council coalesce. Fear was a powerful motivator, and Xylos had masterfully played upon it. The lumina shimmered with a troubled light, a descent of sorrowful pastels, but they offered no formal objection. The geodes remained inert, their calculations likely concluding that a demonstration of force was the most logical path to acquiring the missing data. The other delegations murmured their assent, their own anxieties assuaged by the promise of overwhelming, decisive action. Kalen knew it was a mistake. A deep instinctual part of his ancient consciousness, a faculty that had guided him through countless crises, screamed that this was a path to ruin. To approach a being of unknown power with a threat was like a child poking a sleeping leviathan with a stick. You did not learn the nature of the beast, you only learned the nature of its wrath. But he was the arbiter of the Council's will, not its dictator. His role was to guide the consensus, and the consensus was clear. "So be it," Kalen projected, the words feeling like shards of glass in his resonant core. "The Grand Flotilla will be dispatched. Fleet Master Vorlag will be given command. His orders will be explicit, a show of force only. He is to demand communication, not initiate hostilities. He is to represent the authority and the solemnity of this council, not the arrogance of a conqueror." He fixed his gaze on Xylos, his internal light hardening to a brilliant, cold diamond. "Ensure your Vexian contingent understands this, Lord Commander. There will be no glory-seeking. There will be no preemptive strikes. The honor of this entire institution rests upon his discipline." Xylos gave a curt, respectful nod, a gesture of feigned subservience that did not mask the triumphant gleam in his multifaceted eyes. The decision was made. The great, ancient machine of the Galactic Council's military might begin to turn, its gears lubricated with pride and fear. As the delegates dispersed, their thought forms and energy trails leaving shimmering wakes in the air, Kalen remained, his gaze fixed on the silent, black ship in the hologram. He felt a profound sense of an ending, a closing chapter in a book that had been written for longer than his own species had existed. He was sending the Council's greatest symbol of its power, the culmination of all its knowledge and history, to confront a ghost. And he feared, with a certainty that chilled his very core, that the ghost would not be the one to fade away. The void at the edge of the Perseus arm was a canvas of profound emptiness, punctuated by the cold, distant glitter of fledgling stars. Against this backdrop, the arrival of the Grand Flotilla was not merely an event. It was a violation of the natural order. Space itself seemed to recoil as reality tore open in a series of silent, blossoming ruptures of light. From these wounds in the fabric of the universe, the Council's ships emerged, not as a fleet, but as a statement. They were not the brutalist, functional warships of the outer patrol fleets. Each vessel was a masterpiece, a fusion of high art and devastating science. The Cathar flagship, the stellar Resolve, was a cathedral of living crystal, its spires glowing with contained starlight. The Vexian carriers were like obsidian shards, their hangar bays yawning open to reveal swarms of fighter craft that moved with the precision of a hive mind. Lumina cruisers drifted like celestial jellyfish, their hulls of pure, hardened light pulsing with energy that could pacify a planet or shatter it. It was an armada of immense scale, a curtain of light and power that stretched across the stars, designed to awe, to intimidate, and to overwhelm through sheer, undeniable presence. From the command bridge of the stellar Resolve, Fleet Master Vorlag observed the human ship. It had not moved. It had not reacted. It hung in the void, a tiny speck of nothingness against the glorious, overwhelming spectacle of his fleet. Vorlag, a Cathar of impeccable lineage and unblemished service record, felt a surge of pride that was quickly tempered by the High Arbiter's solemn warnings. This was not a conquest. It was a diplomatic mission, albeit one conducted with the galaxy's most powerful instruments of persuasion. He sat upon his command throne, his crystalline form integrated with the ship's primary systems, his consciousness spread throughout the vessel like a ghost in the machine. He could feel the thrum of the singularity core deep within the ship's heart, the readiness of the shield emitters, the coiled tension of the weapon arrays. They were ready. "Open a channel," Vorlag commanded, his voice resonating through the bridge. "All frequencies, universal mathematical constants as the carrier wave, maximum amplification. Let there be no doubt they have heard us." The comms officer, a younger Cathar whose internal light was a nervous flurry of yellow, complied. A signal of immense power, encoded with the formal greeting of the Galactic Council, lanced across the distance, separating the flotilla from the lone human ship. The message was clear, its language steeped in the gravitas of a 1,000-century-old institution. It identified the flotilla, stated the authority under which it operated, and formally requested, demanded, that the human vessel identify itself, declare its purpose, and prepare to be boarded for inspection in accordance with galactic law. For a long moment that stretched into an eternity, there was only silence. The human ship remained a void. Vorlag felt a flicker of annoyance. The arrogance was astounding. To ignore a communication from the Grand Flotilla itself was an insult of the highest order. He could feel the impatience rippling through the fleet network, a low thrum of Vexian battle lust and the nervous energy of the other crews. "They are mocking us, Fleet Master," his second-in-command projected, his own form shimmering with indignation. "They sit there in their little black shell, confident that their strangeness will protect them." "Patience," Vorlag counseled, forcing a calm he did not entirely feel. "The High Arbiter was clear, we will not be the aggressors." Then something changed. A single point of white light appeared on the black hull of the human ship. It was not a weapon port. It was not an engine flare. It was just a light. And from that light, a signal came. It was not a broad, powerful broadcast like their own, but a tightly focused, needle-thin beam of coherent information directed solely at the stellar Resolve. It bypassed their outer communication buffers and interfaced directly with their holographic display systems. The sphere at the center of the bridge flickered, and the image of the human ship was replaced by a new one. It was a being, a human. It presented as a female of its species, her form encased in a simple dark gray uniform devoid of rank or adornment. Her face was pale, her hair dark and tied back from her features. Her eyes, two dark pools of startling intensity, held no fear, no anger, no arrogance. They held only a profound, unsettling calm. Behind her, the wall was bare, a stark contrast to the ornate, information-saturated bridges of the Council ships. "This is Ambassador Eva Rostova of the human vessel Vigilance," she said. Her voice was steady, the universal translator rendering it into a smooth, unaccented Cathar resonance. It was a quiet voice, yet it commanded the absolute attention of the entire bridge. "We acknowledge your presence. We identify you as the Galactic Council Grand Flotilla. We must respectfully inform you that you have entered sovereign human territory. Please withdraw your fleet beyond the designated demarcation line." The audacity of the statement struck the bridge crew dumb. Sovereign human territory? This empty patch of space? By what right? By what authority did this fledgling species, this evolutionary footnote, declare ownership of the stars? Vorlag felt his own composure cracking. "Ambassador Rostova," he began, his voice taking on a harder, more authoritative edge. "You are mistaken. This sector is under the jurisdiction of the Galactic Council, as is the entire galactic arm. Your vessel is in violation of established law. You will power down your systems and prepare for boarding. This is your final opportunity to comply peacefully." The human Rostova tilted her head slightly, a gesture that the translator's ancillary subroutines flagged as inquisitive or evaluative. "The laws of your council are not our laws, Fleet Master. We do not recognize your jurisdiction here. We have remained at this position to observe, to learn, and to ensure that our own expansion into this region remains quiet. We have no desire for conflict, but we will not yield our sovereignty. We ask you one last time, please withdraw." Vorlag's patience was exhausted. The High Arbiter's caution now seemed like naive foolishness. These humans were not just arrogant, they were expansionist. They were a threat. He had his answer. "So you refuse." "We refuse," Ambassador Rostova confirmed, her expression unchanged. The calm in her eyes was no longer just unsettling, it was infuriating. It was the calm of a being that knew something he did not. "Then you have chosen your fate," Vorlag declared. He severed the communication link, the image of the calm human face vanishing from the sphere. He turned his full consciousness to the fleet. "All ships forward, shields to maximum, power weapons, target the human vessel. I want a disabling shot. Strip its shields, neutralize its drive. I want it intact. We will take it apart piece by piece and learn the source of this insufferable pride." The Grand Flotilla responded as one. A universe of power converged on the single, tiny point of blackness. Shields of shimmering gold, crackling blue, and solid, probability-twisting white blossomed into existence around the Council ships. Weapon ports opened like hungry mouths, glowing with the caged fury of suns. The Vexian carriers unleashed their swarms, thousands of sleek, deadly fighters streaking toward the Vigilance like a river of angry hornets. The air on the bridge of the stellar resolve crackled with energy, with the promise of a swift and decisive end to this ridiculous standoff. The first volley was a symphony of destruction. Beams of pure energy, lances of focused gravitational force, and torpedoes that warped space on impact all converged on the human ship. It was enough firepower to crack a continent, to boil an ocean. It was the culmination of the Council's military might, a blow that no known vessel could possibly withstand. And it did nothing. The beams, the lances, the torpedoes, they did not impact. They did not detonate. They simply ceased to be. In the space immediately surrounding the Vigilance, reality itself seemed to flex. The energy weapons dissipated as if they had been dipped in water. The kinetic projectiles slowed, stopped, and then were simply gone, their matter unconverted, their energy signature vanished. There was no shield flare, no energy discharge, just an absolute physics-defying negation. Vorlag stared, his crystalline mind struggling to process what he had just witnessed. It was not a shield. A shield absorbed or deflected energy, a process that left a clear signature. This was erasure. Before he could issue another command, the human ship acted. It did not fire a weapon. It did not launch a counterattack. The black hull of the Vigilance shimmered, and a wave of something expanded from it. It was not energy. It was not matter. It was a distortion, a ripple in the geometry of space-time. The fighter swarms were the first to be affected. As the wave passed over them, they did not explode. Their pilots did not die. Their ships simply came apart. It was a gentle, almost elegant deconstruction. Hull plates separated, engine pods drifted away from fuselages, and weapon systems floated free, all perfectly intact but no longer connected. It was as if a universal solvent had dissolved the forces that held them together. Thousands of ships were reduced to their component parts in a silent, expanding cloud of inert debris. The wave continued, washing over the Grand Flotilla itself. The Lumina cruisers, whose hulls were made of pure light, simply dissolved, their energy dissipating harmlessly back into the vacuum. The Vexian carriers, mighty and brutal, were next. Vorlag watched in abject horror as one of the colossal ships was caught in the ripple. Its main cannon, a weapon capable of shattering a small moon, was gently plucked from its mounting and sent tumbling into space. The ship's impenetrable armor plating peeled back like the skin of a fruit, revealing the intricate inner workings, which then also began to drift apart. There were no explosions, no casualties. The life support systems remained active in the now exposed crew compartments, the Vexian crews staring out at the impossible spectacle, alive and utterly defeated. The ripple reached the stellar resolve. Vorlag braced for annihilation, his entire being alight with the fire of his ship's imminent destruction. But the end did not come. The wave passed through his vessel, and for a moment everything felt loose. A warning chime, soft and melodic, echoed through the bridge. He looked at the main system's display. "Report," he commanded, his voice strained. "Fleet Master," his second-in-command stammered, his light form flickering chaotically. "Our primary weapon systems, they are offline, all of them. The energy conduits have been disconnected. At a molecular level, they are still there, but they no longer connect to the power core." Another report came in. "Our shield emitters are inert, Fleet Master. The probability matrix has been smoothed. It's a flat line. We can no longer manipulate it." Then came the final, most devastating report. "The Singularity Core, it is stable, but the containment field regulators have been decoupled from the primary command system. We cannot alter its output. We cannot initiate a jump. We are adrift." The entire Grand Flotilla, the pride of the galaxy, the symbol of 100 millennia of dominance, had been neutered. It had not been destroyed. It had been disarmed. It was a fleet of museum pieces, floating dead in the water, its crews alive, unharmed, and utterly, completely helpless. It was the most profound and humiliating defeat in the Council's long and storied history, and it had been accomplished without a single life being taken. It was not a battle. It was a lesson. It was a statement of power so far beyond their own that it defied comprehension. The communication channel opened again, unbidden. The serene face of Ambassador Eva Rostova once more filled the holographic sphere. Her expression was unchanged. There was no triumph in her eyes, no satisfaction. There was only that same deep, unnerving calm. "Fleet Master Vorlag," she said, her quiet voice echoing in the tomb-like silence of the bridge. "I trust we now have your attention. We did not seek this conflict. We are not your enemies, but we will not be subjugated. We have matters of far greater importance to discuss than territorial squabbles. Now will you listen?" Vorlag, Fleet Master of the now powerless Grand Flotilla, his crystalline mind shattered by the sheer, gentle, terrifying totality of his defeat, could only stare at the face of the human. He was a warrior who had faced down neutron stars and commanded fleets that could level civilizations. But in that moment, he felt like a child being gently scolded for playing with things he did not understand. The crushing of the Council's best and brightest had been absolute. And the human's quiet words suggested that this display, this humbling of an entire galactic power, was merely a prelude. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council was no longer a space of resonant harmony. It was a cavern of stunned, terrified silence. The live feed from the stellar resolve had been broadcast to the delegates, and they had all witnessed the impossible. They had watched their greatest symbol of power be dismantled, not with fire and fury, but with the quiet, effortless precision of a master artisan taking apart a child's toy. The nebula above seemed to swirl with a darker, more somber light, its stellar nursery now looking less like a cradle of life and more like a graveyard of dying hopes. The obsidian floor reflected their shattered pride. High Arbiter Kalen had not moved from his central position. His crystalline form was dim, the vibrant inner light that usually pulsed through his lattice, now a faint, mournful blue. He had felt every moment of the defeat as a physical blow. The deconstruction of the Grand Flotilla was the deconstruction of the Council's entire worldview. Their understanding of power, of technology, of their very place in the universe, had been predicated on a set of assumptions that a single, silent human vessel had just proven to be utterly false. Lord Commander Xylos stood frozen in his alcove, his chitinous form rigid, his multifaceted eyes staring blankly at the empty space where the feed had been. His entire philosophy, the Vexian creed of strength as the ultimate arbiter, had been rendered meaningless. What was strength against an opponent who did not even acknowledge the same rules of reality? How could you fight a ghost that could unmake your weapons with a whisper? His ideology had not just been defeated, it had been shown to be irrelevant. It was the Lumina Collective that broke the silence, their ethereal forms glowing with a soft, sorrowful violet. "We saw pride," their collective voice whispered through the chamber. And we have been shown humility. We saw an unknown and we met it with a threat. We have been answered not with a threat, but with a lesson. The humans have taken nothing from us, not a single life, not a single ship in its entirety. They have only taken our arrogance. Kalen's light slowly brightened, a sign of his returning resolve. The Lumina were right. This was a moment of profound crisis, but it was also a moment of potential clarity. The old ways had failed. A new path had to be found. Ambassador Rostova has offered to speak, he projected, his voice heavy but firm. I will go, alone. I will meet with her and I will listen. Xylos finally stirred, a low growl rumbling in his thorax. It is a trap, High Arbiter. They have shown their power. Now they will show their teeth. They will take you hostage. They will make demands. What could they possibly demand of us, Lord Commander? Kalen asked, his tone devoid of accusation, filled only with a weary sadness. Our technology, they have clearly surpassed it. Our resources, a species with such capabilities would have no need for our worlds. Our submission, they had the opportunity to annihilate our fleet and force our surrender, yet they chose to preserve every life. No, they are not conquerors. They are something else, and I intend to find out what. The journey to the Vigilance was a somber affair. Kalen traveled in his personal shuttle, a small, elegant vessel, passing through the ghostly, silent graveyard of what had once been the Grand Flotilla. He saw the Vexian crews, still trapped in their exposed compartments, staring out at him as he passed. He saw the disassembled components of 1,000 fighter craft, drifting like metallic dust motes in the starlight. It was a scene of utter defeat, made all the more chilling by its bloodless, silent nature. The human ship, the Vigilance, granted him permission to approach. A section of its seamless black hull dilated, opening a docking bay that was as Spartan and functional as the rest of their aesthetic. There was no honor guard, no formal reception. There was only a single figure waiting for him as he emerged from his shuttle, Ambassador Eva Rostova. She was dressed in the same simple uniform, her expression as placid and unreadable as it had been on the view screen. High Arbiter Kalen, she said, her voice calm and even. She gave a slight nod of her head, a gesture of acknowledgement, not deference. Thank you for coming. I hope your journey was untroubled. It was illuminating, Ambassador, Kalen replied, his resonant voice filling the stark, gray hangar. You have demonstrated a capacity for de-escalation that is as terrifying as any weapon I have ever witnessed. That was its purpose, Rostova said, turning to lead him down a silent corridor. The walls were smooth, the light soft and indirect. There was no art, no decoration, only function. We did not wish to harm you, but we needed you to understand that the old paradigms of galactic interaction, threats, displays of force, territorial dominance, are not a conversation we are interested in having. They are the games of children in a nursery, arguing over toys, unaware of the world outside the room. They entered a chamber that Kalen assumed was a briefing room. It contained a simple table and 2 chairs. In the center of the room, a holographic display hovered, currently inert. Rostova gestured for him to take a seat, though his form did not truly sit. He lowered himself, his crystalline structure resting on the floor, his height still allowing him to look down at the seated human. You speak of a world outside the nursery, Kalen said, his inner light pulsing with a deep, inquisitive curiosity. For 100 millennia, this galaxy has been our entire world. We have explored its every corner, charted its every star, and brought what we believe to be order and enlightenment to its inhabitants. What is it that we have been blind to? Rostova's calm expression finally shifted. A shadow of profound gravity passed over her features, a flicker of an emotion so ancient and weary that Kalen felt a chill resonate through his being. You have been blind to the silence, she said softly. She activated the holographic display. It showed a map of their galaxy, the familiar spiral arms rendered in stunning detail. But it was overlaid with data he had never seen before. Vast swathes of the map were tinged with a faint, creeping darkness, a statistical anomaly that human sensors had been tracking for centuries. We are a young species, High Arbiter, Rostova began, her voice taking on the tone of a scholar delivering a grim lecture. By your standards, we are infants. When we first reached for the stars, we expected to find a universe teeming with noise, with signals, with the vibrant chaos of 1,000 different civilizations. Like a child entering a bustling city for the first time. Instead, we found an almost complete lack of it. A great, profound silence. She gestured to the map. We studied the cosmological record, we analyzed the light from distant galaxies, and we found a pattern. Civilizations rise, they flourish, they broadcast, and then they stop. The silence is not an absence of life. It is the artifact of its extinction. There is a filter, a great filter, something iswinowing the galaxy of intelligent, technological life. Kalen felt a tremor of a primal fear he had not experienced in eons. The Council had long theorized about the Silent Ones, the precursor races who had left behind enigmatic ruins but had vanished without a trace. They had always been treated as historical curiosities, as species who had transcended or simply died out through their own folly. We believed these were isolated events, Kalen stated, that they had succumbed to war, to environmental collapse, to the slow decay of time. Some did, Rostova acknowledged. But not all, not most. The pattern is too consistent. The cutoff point is too precise. It happens when a civilization reaches a certain threshold of energy output, a certain level of interstellar capability. It is as if they light a candle in a dark room and something snuffs it out. She changed the display. It now showed a simulation, a time-lapse of a hypothetical civilization spreading through a star cluster. As their energy signature brightened, a shadow seemed to coalesce at the edge of the system. A formless, predatory darkness that consumed the light, leaving only silence behind. "What is it?" Kalen asked, his voice barely a whisper. "We do not know for certain," Rostova admitted. "We have only theories based on fragmented data recovered from the ghosts of dead worlds. We call it the acausal extinction. It is not a fleet. It is not an empire. It appears to be a phenomenon, perhaps a form of cosmic life, or an ancient, automated system of unimaginable scale. It operates on principles of physics that are selective. It targets and erases specific patterns of organized energy and information. It consumes consciousness. It feeds on civilization." The truth crashed down upon Kalen with the force of a supernova. Humanity's silence, their caution, their hidden development, it was not arrogance. It was survival. They had seen the hunter in the dark, and they had spent their entire history learning how to stay quiet, how to build their strength without attracting its attention. "Your council," Rostova continued, her gaze unwavering, "has been fortunate. You are an old civilization, but your technological growth has been slow, incremental. Your energy signatures are diffuse, spread across thousands of worlds. You have been like a vast, dim forest, too spread out and too low energy to register as a single bright flame. You have survived through sheer, blissful ignorance." But now, Kalen began, understanding dawning. "Our growth, our expansion, is beginning to approach the threshold," Rostova finished for him. "And we, humanity, have a choice. We could remain silent, hidden in our little corner of the void, and hope the hunter takes you first, buying us a few more millennia. Or we could prepare for the war that is inevitably coming for us all." She stood up and walked to the edge of the holographic display, her small form dwarfed by the image of the galaxy. "The Vigilance is not a warship in the sense that you understand it. It is a scalpel. It is designed to operate on the fabric of reality itself, because that is the level on which our enemy operates. The technology we use to disarm your fleet is a derivative of the tools we are developing to fight the silence." The pieces fell into place, forming a picture of terrifying, humbling clarity. The title they had given themselves, the Guardians of the Galaxy, was a child's fantasy. They had been keeping peace in a single room while a firestorm was consuming the rest of the house. Humanity, the quiet newcomers, were the only ones who had thought to look out the window. Kalen felt a wave of shame wash over him, so profound it threatened to extinguish his inner light. He looked at Rostova, at this representative of a species they had dismissed as primitives, and saw not an upstart but a sentinel, a watchman on a wall they had not even known existed. "Our entire engagement with your flotilla," Rostova said, her voice softening with something that might have been sympathy, "was a test. We needed to know what you were. Were you another potential predator? Were you a civilization we would have to fight before the real war began? Or were you potential allies? Your fleet master's aggression was predictable. But your response, High Arbiter, in coming here to listen, that gives us hope." She finally let the full weight of her burden show, the mask of calm cracking just enough to reveal the abyss beneath. "We have been alone with this knowledge for a very long time. We have carried the weight of it in secret, preparing for a battle that we know with absolute certainty we cannot win by ourselves. Humanity's warship crushes the Galactic Council's best, their brightest, a display that has shaken your civilization to its core. We demonstrated a power that you thought was godlike." She paused, and her next words fell with the finality of a coffin lid closing. "And still, not enough." She gestured to the map one last time, zooming out, past their galaxy, past the local group, into the unimaginable void between galactic clusters. A faint signal was highlighted, a repeating, structured pulse of neutrinos, so weak it was barely distinguishable from cosmic background radiation. It was a signal that humanity had spent a century deciphering. "This is why it is not enough," she said. "That is a warning, a distress call. It is not from our galaxy. It is from Andromeda, and it is 2.5 million years old. When we finally decoded it, it was a single, repeating message from a civilization that faced the same enemy." Kalen focused his senses on the translated text that appeared beneath the signal's origin point. It was simple, devastating. "It comes, the silence is absolute. We are the last light. Forgive us, we failed." "They failed," Rostova repeated, her voice a bare whisper that seemed to be swallowed by the immensity of the revelation. "A civilization that spanned an entire galaxy, and they failed. All our power, all our technology, this vessel that so easily defeated your armada, it is a pittance. It is a child's sword against an ocean. It is still not enough." The final twist, the true scale of their predicament, settled upon Kalen. This was not about humanity, it was not about the Council, it was not about territory or power or laws, it was about existence itself. The universe was not empty and waiting to be filled. It was haunted by a predator that consumed light and life, and it had been doing so for eons. The great silence was not an absence, it was a presence. Kalen, high arbiter of a civilization that had believed itself the master of its own destiny, finally understood. His fear of the humans was gone, replaced by a much larger, more profound terror that was, paradoxically, mingled with the first flicker of genuine hope he had felt since the vigilance first appeared. The enemy was incomprehensible, its scale cosmic. But for the first time in millennia, his people were not alone in the dark. He looked at the human ambassador, Eva Rostova, a being of soft flesh and fleeting lifespan, who carried a burden that would have crushed a star. He saw in her eyes not the arrogance of a superior power, but the weary resolve of a soldier in a war that had been raging since before her species had even learned to make fire. "Ambassador," Kalen said, his voice resonating with a new gravity, a new purpose. The light within him solidified, no longer the wavering blue of uncertainty, but the brilliant, steady white of conviction. "It seems the Galactic Council has been debating the wrong questions. You have my attention. You have my word. The games are over. Tell us how we can help you prepare for the war." The nursery door had been thrown open, and the cold, star-filled night outside was vast and dark and full of teeth. And two civilizations, one ancient and proud, the other young and burdened, stood together on the threshold, ready to face the silence as one. The true battle was about to begin.